Hello, everybody. How we doing? Mushu says hello as well. He's up on my desk. Masu, Moria, hello, everybody. Darrell, I saw you in chat before as well. How's everybody doing? We have just come from an event where my list that I showed off before, all of this stuff just here, is completely undefeated. And I actually had a chat to every single team that we played that was up there. I was the red matchup for every single player at that event, which kind of feels amazing. It was a teams event, so anybody who's not familiar with the teams format, obviously you go up with another team of 5 people playing against a number of other 5-person teams. I was brought in as a replacement because this team had people drop. I wasn't originally going to be going to the teams event, but decided to go up there and fill in, and I'm really glad I did, because the people that were on that team I actually recruited to my competitive team, and they have joined us. We'll be having their induction and everything else and training days and whatever in the future. Very, very exciting, but the Pantheon team is growing quite a bit. But let's center on the list, because this list, there's no other way to say it, this list hard fucked. This list hard fucked. And I got a number of compliments on the list as well, which is really, really awesome. And we're going to go through, I'm going to go match by match and just have a chat about the different people that I versed, how I sort of looked at my deployment, their threats, what they did. Now, we do only have about 35 minutes for this stream, so it will be a little bit of a shorter one. Apologies to everybody who's in for the, the real long haul sort of stuff. My hair keeps getting cut off. I don't know if it's my hair's really tall, or maybe I just haven't put the thing up to the right level. Let's just bump it up a little bit more. There we go. It's okay, Mushi. That's just science. So let's start it off. I don't even need to bring up my phone for the first one. My first game was against Pete O'Neill on his Thousand Suns. Now, Peter O'Neill is somebody who played in the Oceanic Championship circuit. and made about 1 billion 5-ups. It took me 3 turns to kill 1 Mutalith Vortex Beast. But the beauty of the list is that the killing wasn't actually the most necessary thing. The Crisis units were picking up 2 turns of Rubrics a turn because he had to expose those to come out and do his stuff. Now, I had a number of people take fixed secondaries against me this event, and I was actually able to leverage that into being able to beat them because fixed secondaries, I was able to protect enough of my stuff that Assassinate and Bring It Down were the 2 measures of the day. The smartest player that I went against was actually Josh Hines in the final round, which for drama reasons, which I won't go into, I was unable to actually complete the match. I'm still technically undefeated. Chatting to him and him chatting to his team and everything else, we weren't actually entirely sure who was going to win, but I believe I had a little bit of an edge in points and army left on the table, but really would have been up to a couple of key dice rolls and a couple of secondary cards that I would have drawn, but unfortunately it was a game that I wasn't able to finish, which I was really disappointed about, because playing Josh is always fantastic. He is like the number one human being to be in a game with and everything else, so I was very sad that I couldn't finish that one. But when I was going into this Thousand Suns list, I was very conservative with what I would throw them. I did make a mistake with throwing Breaches over a wall because all of his rubrics were kitted out with Warp Flamers, which, oh my god, even with -1 to wound from the Guardian drone, it does not matter. It was so much volume. So that is a little bit of a personal lesson learned. Having said that, though, it did burn a CP that I think came up later in the game. So I'm not going to say that me sacrificing that unit of Breaches was anything other than what it was. I think it would have been better for me to position, because basically what I did, let's go into here. Sorry, Mushi, I'm going to be over your back. He had his dude sitting on the other side of a wall. I drove the Devilfish straight up and got my boys out over the wall. What I probably should have done is had the Devilfish 1 inch off the wall so that their bases couldn't fit on the other side, and they would literally have to run either side of the Devilfish to get out there. That probably would have been the better play. Make them pop the Devilfish, which is actually kind of hard for T-Suns to do because they don't want to spend their Cabal points on turning off a Devilfish's armor save. It doesn't matter. The Devilfish is like one of those annoying things they have to deal with, but they don't want to. And then make them pop the Devilfish and then have the Breaches get out, potentially back over the other side of the wall where they can't interact with them if they've run out this way, and make some hard decisions there. I ended up coming away with the victory. What was my score line? It was a very, very, very close game. 95 to 81. Now, where I was able to get Pete, who I will reiterate again, is not a scrub. This was not a clubbing. Pete played in the Oceanic Championship circuit. He got a 16 for his Assassinate because I held the right characters. Do you want to get down, my little man? Okay. All right. Here we go. Did all of you hear that little owl? I love my little owl, but he's a little sook. Oh, it's okay. It's okay, my little man. Off you go. Have fun. So, Assassinate, and this is something that I've been saying. I actually say pre-game to a few opponents. Don't forget that I can bait you with Bring It Down and with Assassinate. Now, he knew that I would need to use my vehicles to win the game, so Bring It Down was a good call. He got 20 out of 20 for that. But one of the big things was getting him off of primary later in the game. He scored a 35 out of 50. For primary, I scored a 45 because we were just on a generic take and hold. So I had certain things like Sky Rays that he just didn't have the range to be able to deal with and was too busy chewing on Breaches and everything else. Now, one of the big things about this list that I love is the flexibility between having Breaches and Piranhas in somebody's face and then having little untouchables that he can't really do anything with. Now, he did double Doombolt, a Ghost Kill off the field, and that is probably my first tip that I will give to everybody. Double Doombolt, or abilities like Doombolt, don't care about Lone Operative. Your opponents can use them to target them at whatever range they have. And while he had the Mutalith Vortex Beast, all of his things were double range. So the 18 inches became 36 inches, which meant that he could use Doombolt and then use a second character to Doombolt it again. So be careful with your ghost kills, but at the point that I did that, it was a tactical throwaway at that point, and the ghost kill 8 doom bolts weren't going on to a different unit. Wasn't a misplay from Pete, it was just something that I had set up that he needed to be able to do. So taking round 1 with a 95-81, Pete's team was actually one of the teams that we were getting ready to struggle into, and our team pulled out a very, very nice victory, which was, we drew, but had more wins than they did. In teams, you still look at your points at the end of the day. Their sword 20-0'd the shield that we put into them, and it meant that they caught up in points even though we were a little bit higher. So, very, very good first round. Then going into the second round, went into, and this one was a complete clubbing. This was a newer player, Jason. Not a newer player, just not a strictly competitive player. I've played him before at Combat Company. One of the loveliest dudes. We're actually the next morning at breakfast. That makes it sound like we slept together, but we all showed up because there was one place for breakfast across from the venue, and we were having a chat. Turns out we actually grew up in the same town, even though he's my senior. He went to a school that was just down the road when it was still a boarding school from mine, and the two schools have a massive rivalry. We were talking about some of the flooding and everything that we used to have there and blah, 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 sharing some dog dad pictures and all that sort of thing. So I had a wonderful game against Jason, knowing that I was going to beat him. I just made it a coaching game. I was actually showing him a lot of the stuff you can do with charge phase and everything else. We didn't end up finishing it because we were taking it nice and slow and whatever else, and the TO wasn't happy with us talking out at the end, which I didn't know about, so I probably would have just accelerated the game a little bit more. But having said that, I got the win, and that's all we needed. It wouldn't have mattered whether I 20-0'd him or 11-9'd. My result, unfortunately, didn't matter in the grand scheme of things for the team because we had lost just too many games. So Jason playing Black Templars, very, very lovely game. I rather enjoyed it. It was going to be over by about, I think, turn 3. But yeah. Now, one of the big things that I will say in that game was actually the Crisis team. Keeping them safe, using ghost kills to hold objectives that he didn't want to touch. The piranhas were such a massive annoyance for him. I charged a repulsor executioner on all 3 of the turns that we had. So I was putting it in positions where he couldn't get guys out in places that he would want to. So we were going through some of the decision making on that, which was really, really cool. Then I played Adam on his Necrons. I'd never played Adam before, and he hadn't played against Tau before. And when he was setting his units up, he had a 20-man of Necron warriors with 2 of the crypto thralls, the characters attached to them, whatever. He's like, I asked him, I'm like, okay, so you're placing you guys there. That's their deployment, just to give him a chance to look at it and assess whether that was what he wanted to do. He's like, yep, no, it's fine. I haven't come across anything that can pick up these warriors in one activation. So I throw the Crisis unit at him. First turn, no double explodes yet. They do have the enhancement for the double explodes, but I didn't have that running at the time. I overkilled him by, I think it was 5 wounds on the Necron Warrior squad, and then just couldn't get through the characters. They had invulnerable saves, so whatever. He was flabbergasted. And then there was some stuff with like the Sky Rays throwing Seeker missiles at some of the destroyers that he had, and I, had a Breacher squad take out his unit of flayed ones that he was using to screen on a particular place, which was smart. The piranhas had to go around them, which was annoying. But yeah, I won't forget the look on his face, and it's hard not to feel like a bad person when somebody, you warn them. You warn them the volume that you've got. You warn them just how many shots are going to be coming to them, that you're going to, on an overcharge, you're winning on 2s, on a non-overcharge, you're winning on 3s because they're T4. And everybody kind of gets it in their head that they can live against a Crisis unit, and it didn't happen. So that one, we actually called at the end of turn 2. I felt bad, so we ended up, even though he conceded, I still gave him a couple of concessions for things he could score and whatever else because I didn't want him to feel bad about himself. So it ended up being a 17-3. It should have been a 20-0 because he conceded at the end of his turn 2. But I felt bad. What can I say? Then the next one was into Simon. Now, Simon, I remembered... may we see the list for reference? I see Skyrays Ghost Kills. Yes, I'll put that through now. I forgot to save my thing from before, but I have my list up. I will get that over onto a text document. And if anybody's got any questions about the list while we're running through it and I'm talking games and everything else, feel free to shoot them through. And if anybody wants to support the channel while you're doing it, super chats and that sort of stuff are greatly appreciated and will instantly get my attention. I think I had it on somewhere. So I'll give you the text version of it, but essentially you are looking at everything that is on the table with Card for Fireblades, no enhancements, Cold Star leading the Crisis Suit unit, Commander Farsight rolling on his own, which, surprise, surprise, was pretty awesome. There were a couple of matches where he did nothing, and I'll say that straight up, there are a couple of matches where he does nothing. But those aren't matches that you are worried about losing in the first place. They are just ones where you use him as an annoyance. You use him as something that your opponents don't want to deal with, but if they don't, then you just take over the game. So, copy that one in. Let's bring up a Google Sheet. No, it's not Google Sheets. It's Google Docs. I don't know what they call it. Knock off Microsoft Word. That's what we'll call it. All right. El Documente. Wait, no, we don't want to do that. Back that up. Paste without formatting because it tries to keep the blue in for whatever stupid reason. And let's bring that across. Okay, so we can run through it with everybody. And anybody, if you would like to pause this as a VOD, I will leave it up there for a while. Kirkland Word. Very acceptable for 90 points. Yes, he is. Someone also pointed out in the comments when I was first looking at the Ronin Farsight, I was like, oh, they killed Farsight. It's 90 points gone. You still got 19, 20 points left. I had presenter brain. My brain wasn't doing maths. Yes, I know it's 1910. I was just throwing words out. You can probably also hear a remnant of me losing my voice from the weekend. Day 2, I didn't have a lot because we had the party bus drive up on the Friday. I get loud when I drink. Surprise, surprise. And yeah. So, Hell Hath No, because we have the Fish of Fury. Double card Fireblade. And I will say the Breaches got a lot of compliments through the weekend. A lot of opponents really didn't have an answer for them and knew that when they were killing them, there was something even more scary following up behind them. So double card for Fireblade, both of them rocking gun drones. Now, I've seen a couple of people that have been putting marker drones onto their Breaches, and I made this mistake when the index first came out. Breacher units have the marker-like keyword. You gain nothing from it. They have assault guns, and they have the marker-like keyword. You do not need marker drones. Make sure you're taking gun drones because these things absolutely hard fuck. I said in the last stream that we did, the gun drones here attached to the Cadra Fireblade get the +1 attack because they're a war gear and 6s to wound are AP3. So with twin linked, or if the unit is standing on an objective, you get full rerolls to wound. One from twin linked and one from the breach and clear thing. Obviously twin linked here, but like other guns, don't forget AP3 and you can reroll the wound roll because they're part of a breacher squad. The extra volume of shots helped a ton. And it also meant in situations where a 10-inch gun wasn't enough, I couldn't get in range, whatever else, you could also consider throwing some of that 20-inch fire over onto a different target. Especially if you guided for somebody else, because all of your other guns are hitting on 3s. These hitting on 5s wouldn't have really made much of a difference on 4s. You just throw some YOLO shots because you're overkilling the unit that's in front of you. Then I had Shadow Sun, I had Commander Farsight, and I had a Cold Star Commander with a marker and a shield. I've spoken about this before. The +1 wound is very, very nice because it creates a breakpoint where you can have 2 fails from cyclic overcharges without killing the commander. And the marker drone means that if I use coordinate to engage, the unit that he joins has the marker-like keyword, meaning that if you use them to guide for somebody else, they get +1 ballistic skill and they get ignoring cover, as well as a unit they guided getting ignoring cover, which is very, very big in the current metagame. Breacher team, all of them rocking the Guardian drone and a gun drone. Now make sure that you roll your gun drone separately, because these gun drones won't benefit from the AP3 from the card to Fireblade. It is individual war gear. And then Guardian drone -1 to wound is just, it is so nice. It is so nice. 2 of those, 2 Devilfish to go with them. Now, I also saw, and unfortunately I didn't get to talk to him before I left, there was Sage is a guy that I met a while back. He was playing Tau for the first time. He had Twin SMS on his Devilfish. Now, the reason I say not to use Twin SMS to him and to anybody else is that if you want your Devilfish to advance, the Twin Pulse Carbines are the only assault guns on the vehicle. Eligibility to shoot is really big. Even just from the stance of, all right, I can advance my Devilfish, and then I can look at doing an action in the center. If I need to deploy Teleport Homer, or if I need to get into my opponent's deployment zone, I can get that extra distance because we don't have a pre-game move on them anymore because Montcar isn't a thing yet. And it means that you can do a bunch of different stuff like that, or use the Devilfish to guide for a unit because you're still eligible to shoot. You won't be able to fire the Seeker missiles, and you won't be able to fire the Accelerated Burst Cannon. It's fine. But that is a choice you are making, and is something that meant that this is why I don't score below like 60, 70 points, even on a loss, because I'm constantly doing things with units that can go somewhere and get me points. That's how we win the game. It's not about killing people. I mean, it kind of is, but yeah, you know what I mean. I'll read a little bit of chat before we keep going on. Glad to see you live from the US. Excited to see the list. Thank you, Kevin. Masu, how do you usually position Shadow Sun? Forward to maximize usage of the aura, or at the back to abuse lone op? Yes. I'll show you. I'm not actually just going to leave it at yes. So Shadow Sun, I think a lot of people really think that the reroll ones to hit is her big draw. It's not. It's really not. I'll set up a situation that I had in one of my games. I wasn't playing against Eldari, but I'll show you in my game against Josh, he was running the Daka Carnifexes. And I put him in a position where he actually couldn't run them out. Let's just say this is the Daka Carnifexes. Shadow Sun was sitting about here, and I had stuff hiding behind both sets of walls. Now, obviously, I don't have a wall here, but I'll just put it there to give a point of reference. Actually, sorry, grab the Crisis team. They were sitting up there. Devilfish was going forward here, and we actually had, it was, I think, similar to this. I think it was the Crossways deployments, the Crucible of Battle, I think the deployment plan is. But basically, there was an objective like right here, and I had Shadow Sun sitting in the most egregious position where Crisis Suits was sitting about here. Every time they did a fire and fade, there was the CP reroll, which I actually got it back on one of the dice, which was very nice. And then had her within 6 of the Breacher squad. The biggest thing here is that I was able to stand her out open on the objective, and this was screening against his little indirect Biovore dude, because he was using that for deploy Teleport Homer. Now, Josh is a very good player, and he found a way to get it into my deployment zone every single turn because I couldn't screen off all of that. I'd give up too much of the board. But I use Shadow Sun in a way that is the least interactive. If I can get use out of her buffs, great. But if I've got an opponent who cannot threaten the middle, let's say I've killed a bunch of stuff, he's hard committed, this is his strong side over this way, this is his strong side over this way, and there's nothing that can get within 12 inches of her in the middle, I'll sit her like that. I will happily sit her like that. There was even one game where I had her join a Ghost Keel and a unit of Tetras over on what I created as the strong side of the board, because it meant that I could have the Ghost Kill run up, I could have Shadow Sun kind of running up behind it, Tetra's sitting somewhere down here. He couldn't deep strike in this entire area. He had stuff that he didn't want to move into this area because it was also backing up with line of sight from the Crisis Suits. So she is something that I can use to put in a position where you either get within 12 and then she's -1 to hit, -1 to wound, or you just don't interact with her, in which case I have forced you away from the section of the board. Now, she can't do it on her own. She does have to be supported by other things, but when you start setting up a network of screening and everything else, whoa, where you going, fella? Where are you going? There we go. When you set up a network of deep strike denial, because you just need 18 between two models and this whole area is deep struck out, you know, you're using her to disrupt your opponent as much as possible. If you can get the CP refund or the reroll ones, cool. But that's not her primary job. It's just a nice to have, which adds to the strength of the model. I will try and use them when I can, but I do not overextend myself to get them, and I do not hold back my units to try and keep those. I hope that answers the question properly. There's probably a little bit more that I can do, but yeah. Does the Breacher team's gun drone also benefit from Card of Fireblade rule, which gives extra attack, even though they don't get the -3 AP one? Yes, it does. Because the Card of Fireblade rule... let's bring up my... I didn't think we were getting into this, but we'll bring that up. Let's bring up my 40k El Documente Tower Index for 10th. And how long do we have? Because I've got to keep track of time. I cannot be late for raid. So 7:38, excellent. All right, so let's have a look at the Card of Fireblade, because anything that anybody ever needs to know is always in the wording. It's one of the things that GW does right some of the time. Some of the time. You gonna full screen for me? There we go. Okay, so while this model is leading a unit, so that is the precluder for people that are like, oh, does Farsight get +1 to wound when he's on his own? No, while leading a unit. Add 1 to the attack's characteristic of ranged weapons equipped by models in that unit. Now, the new drone rules are that the models are equipped with the drones that they have. This becomes, the bearer is equipped with the following ranged weapon. So you can see how the wording overlaps on them to show you that these are now guns that are attached to those. So the chassis that has the Guardian drone and the gun drone, 3 attacks, ballistic skill 5, strength 5, AP 0, damage 1, 20-inch range, twin linked. So even if they're not standing on an objective, you still get rerolls to wound with this particular gun. It's something that... it's something that, like, when you look at it, it seems kind of shit. But when you look at the other options, there is nothing else really that does the same thing. You don't really care about a chassis having +1 wound. Usually when they get shot at, they're going to die anyway. You want the chassis to live as long as possible because of the Guardian drone for the -1 to wound. So, you take gun drones and you just get free volume. Just absolute free volume. And there are some times where, like, I would plink a wound off. What was there was a really, really obnoxious unit that I got a wound off, and I actually, like, physically celebrated. I know the gun drones got one off of a Mutalith Vortex Beast. That was huge. And actually, it was the Black Templars Impulsor Executioner. Gun drone took a wound off that, and I was like, fuck yeah. You know, I didn't kill it, and normally it's into, like, troops and stuff, because the gun drones killed a full Marine, which isn't something you would have. You'd have +1 wound, but you'd have another Marine kicking around on the field, which, you know, weigh it up. I'd probably prefer the less Marine, but anyway. So that's, like, drones at the moment. People ask about this. I will represent the stealth drones for the Ghost Kill, so I can personally track how many blanks I've got. But they're not necessary. They are now war gear attached to the model that they're rocking with. So let's go back to, nope, that's not the one. Let's go on to our list. So we got the Devilfish, we got a 6-man crisis suit rocking Cyclics with shield drones and shield generators, in my opinion, necessary. The Thousand Suns player Pete would have been able to make a very, very, very hostile move to turn off the armor saves of these crisis suits, and I would have either had to have them at the back of the board and never use them, basically, or... he would have just been able to make a real aggressive move to triple move on top of me, because Thousand Suns can do that, and then just blow me up. So, we're then rocking 2 Ghost Kills. I prefer the Cyclic Ion Raker because it gives them a little bit more range, a little bit more volume. Twin Fusion Blaster. Battlesuit Support System, always take it. All you lose is the smoke keyword when you fall back. You already have stealth. Benefit of cover, you're normally standing your Ghost Kills with their base obscured by something. That means... You have the benefit of cover almost all the time. Now, Triple Piranha, Double Seeker, Piranha Fusion Blaster. Melter 4 on a 9-inch scout move, 14-inch move unit. When they kill it, 55 points. Who cares? These things charged almost everything on my opponent's board. It was so aggressive. It was so wonderful. I cannot tell you how many people I made extremely mad by having piranhas in their face when they didn't want to. I stopped them from moving to get points. I stopped them from moving to get objectives. These guys are one of my, I do not want to leave home without you unless I'm replacing it with something of as much value. Double Sky Ray with double accelerated burst cannons and Seeker Missile Rack. The Sky Rays were a weird one. I'm not going to write them off. There were a lot of matchups where somebody saved very, very effectively against them. And what it did is solidify in my mind that I prefer the Sky Rays over the Hammerhead, because if I had people making their 4-ups against the Hammerhead, I would be extremely down on them. I would be super, super down on them. I don't want to take Hammerheads any time in the current meta. The Seeker Missiles, you throw 3 of them, re-rolling 1 of them because of their stuff. If you go against flying, which there's plenty of that in the game at the moment, they get full re-rolls to hit. So you're getting through a lot of the Seeker Missiles that you're sending. And on top of that, they were something that most opponents just had to ignore. They don't want to go killing these when they're like, what, T10 something, decent number of wounds, decent save, cover is like the easiest thing in the world to get, very, very different from 9th, which means that they are a pretty obnoxious target to try and kill unless you've got dedicated anti-tank that can trade without basically losing anything. I actually really liked them. Even though they didn't do a lot, I don't want to make my mind up because it's not representative. What I saw was opponents saving well against them, but they were still having to make those saves or play around them because where they would position and move was based on where my Sky Rays were able to get to and able to look. So I did really enjoy them. I'm going to include them in other lists, definitely. I'll probably end up playing this list as a GT list. That was kind of the benefit. I didn't take a skew list to this team's event because I was so late to the party, which meant that I took an old-comer and it ended up being every single player's red. Every single player that we went into, every single team, nobody wanted to go into Tau. They knew they were getting thrown under the bus. And that's how strong this list is. And then double Tetris. There's not much else to say about that. Huge shame for Hammerheads. Railguns are cool. Railguns are fucking cool. Hammerheads and broadsides are the things that made me love Tau initially. I was like, oh, I love the big rail guns and everything else. It looks so cool. I've fallen in love with the other stuff as I've started playing, but yeah, those were some of my favorite models. So whenever somebody's like, you're saying that Hammerheads are shit, they think that it's like a personal biases or something like that, but it's not. It's not. It hurts me when I can't use my models. Broadsides I'm also down bad a little bit on because they got a 5-inch move. And their vehicles, they can't walk through walls anymore. They are the most unwieldy thing to use, whereas this thing, 10-inch move with fly, is good. Is good. So that is the list in its entirety. It did incredibly well. Incredibly well. I don't know that there's anything that I would particularly not want to put this into. Honestly, I may have just made my list of 10th. I don't know where changes are going to go, or like I'll say for 10th indexes. This list can deal with basically everything, and I don't know if there's a part of it that I really want to get rid of. I thought about taking more Breacher Fish, but I've kind of found that 2 is that sweet spot where I've still got a Crisis unit, which is an obscene amount of damage. The Breaches do an excellent amount of damage, putting them into the right targets. The Ghost Kills are annoying, sitting out on the flanks and getting me primary and doing missions on the side, because at the end of the day, I don't care about not shooting their guns. They are something which is too tough and too resilient for people to want to send resources in, knowing full well that this thing isn't killing a bunch of stuff. Like, yeah, I got some models every now and again, but that wasn't its job. That's not what I cared about. And then all the character pieces. I think the thing that I will play around with is Farsight. Maybe Shadow Sun, though she did very, very well for me. But throwing in little things like Onvar, or throwing in an Ethereal for CP Gen to make it a little bit more, or I guess less punishing on the Crisis unit, because if you go first, there is no chance that you fire and fade. So you have to be very certain about where you put them because it's 2 CP. You can discard a mission, a secondary objective, but that you get that CP at the end of your turn. You don't have that to use at the time that you want it. Whereas in Ethereal, you can put in Strat Reserve and still use his ability, because in the rules commentary, units can use rules and abilities even when they're not on the table. You just can't use it when they're embarked in a transport. So Yeah, I think there's a few things that I'll play around with. I'll see if there's a sweet spot for me to hit. But I was super impressed with the list. Super, super impressed if I don't mind sucking my own dick. And yeah, the compliments from the other players, especially the players that are very, very good, they had a lot of troubles working out how to pick apart this list. So that is a real big thumbs up for it, in my opinion. I've been on Skyrays and they have felt really good for anti-tank for me. Then plus your Crisis Brick just typically deletes anything you want it to. I use a Farsight and a 3-man blob with fusions. Farsight and 3-man blob with fusions, I can see the argument for. I don't like that their fusion is 6 inches now. Even though you weren't getting fusion with the old one because you had to come down outside of 9, which meant you never got it, even on 18-inch guns. But, you know, with rapid ingress, it's definitely something you can do. I think there's a bunch of ways that you can take it, but honestly, I don't think I need any more crisis suits than this. I think this list is flexible. It is hard to counter. It has plenty of units on the board. It has plenty of options for strat reserve and deep strike. And it starts on the board very, very well because you're not creating a massive parking lot because you've got a bunch of infiltrator units. Even Tetras, I would put them in the most obnoxious positions on this side of the board. So when my opponent runs up, I've got a guider that's here, ready to go straight away. They can sit on the objective. They're really hard to shift because they're T7, 7 wounds. And again, it is not something your opponents want to shoot. It is not something your opponents want to deal with. They'll charge into it, sure. They'll try and slingshot. You just pre-measure and make sure they never get that chance. So I would infiltrate a lot of units and then leave all of my deployment space free for everybody else to come in and do their thing. Setting up was very, very important to make sure I had room for my devilfish. I had pre-measured for my piranhas to either go first and go forward or go second and go backward. There was a lot. There was a lot to this list that gave you so much flexibility and freedom, and I would highly, highly, highly recommend playing it. That is our short stream. The time went insanely quickly. If you've got any questions, shoot them through now because I will have to jump over and get ready to raid as we get our second clear for the night. Ever consider splitting your 6-man crisis into 2 groups? Given cron blobs are maybe the only thing a 6-man one can do that, a 3-man cannot. If you've got a lot of knights and stuff in your meta, I would actually recommend leaving the 6-man together. Also, the 6-man only just didn't kill a Maliceptor, even though I should have. Josh spiked his save super hard, but having that volume was good for them. I would absolutely consider splitting them into 2 3-mans. And having them, Farsight in one, Cold Star in the other, Deep Strike, Flex. I think that one is really, what does your meta look like? Because if I go into some of the best players in Australia, like Liam Hackett is a Necrons player. He took that to Warmaster. He took that to the World Championships of Warhammer. I want to be able to lift his 20-man blob. I absolutely want to be able to do that. There's not many lists that require... baby, our stuff is out front. It got delivered. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to pull it in. I've been streaming. Do you want to come and say hi? Yeah. Chelsea got home from work. There's my little wonderful PhD go-getter. Hi. And, of course, Mushu is losing his mind because she's finally home. Excuse me, little man. Hey, Mushi. No licking. Hey.
All right.
No, right.
I'll bring you dinner.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, baby. All right, there's not many lists that require a full game worth of strength 20 railgun shots. You have enough free seekers as a Tau player to deal with most tough models. I will agree with that. I will absolutely agree with that. Do you start your crisis units in Deep Strike typically? No, they will start on the board. Unless there is some reason why they need to not be on the board. I think the big thing would be the friggin' indirect night spinners from Eldar that really shit me off. But one of the biggest things is that I want to be able to position and not give my opponent efficacy to screen me out. It is way too easy to do, and I also find that a lot of people give me free angles turn 1. Now, that's not always the case, and if I'm worried about it, yes, I'll start them in Deep Strike. That one is a flex of, do I understand my opponent and how they're going to play? If you don't, start them on the board. Because then 18 inches of movement is much, 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 much better than Deep Strike 9. So, yeah, I would go with that. No, don't worry about nights. Okay, Pat. All right. That's where we're going, is it? Good morning from Wales, UK. Good morning, Kung Hop. I apologize to everybody who's jumping on now. We are actually ending our stream. This was a very, very quick one. If you want to know when I go live, make sure you've got me, subscribed on YouTube or followed on Twitch or whatever. You've got notifications on, because sometimes these streams will be relatively short. These will be up on YouTube as a VOD immediately. So if you want to go back and have a look at it, I talk through my opponents, a couple of points from the games, and then I show a couple of things here. But I wanted to do this stream just because I had a little bit of free time. I didn't have enough time to record and edit a video, but enough time to jump on with you lovely people and just sort of talk a little bit about it, because I am gushing over this list. It just does so well. The mix of breaches and crisis suits, the little, utility tech pieces that I've got, max use of infiltrate, and whatever else, abusing lone op. There is just so much in this list to fall in love with. How would you position your crisis brick at the start? Completely out of sight? Yes, absolutely. One of my favorite things to do is be a Tau player that if my opponent goes first, they have nothing to shoot at. I will leave nothing out in the open. They will be second floor and first floor back here. Back here. Or if I know that they don't have the speed to get line of sight, I'll bring them forward and they'll just hang out here. But all of that is done through pre-measuring. I will make sure that if my opponent goes first, I know everywhere that their units can go and that they will have nothing to shoot at, nothing to interact with. That is how you win competitive games. You do not deploy as if you are always going to go first. Piranhas, much, much safer because you can deploy as if you're going to go first, but pre-measure 9 inches to get them around a wall. If this guy's here, and let's say this is actually a line of sight blocking piece, and I go, cool, I'm back here, you can't see me anymore. Bang, he's got nothing to interact with. He spends his whole turn praying that he is able to draw secondary cards that he can score that turn. And that is a very, very strong position to put yourself in and pressure to put on your opponent. So I hope this and the last stream have been helpful. If you haven't seen the last stream, make sure that you go back and watch that. It's a similar thumbnail to this one. We go through everything, literally everything. Do all the internet things and, sub and like and whatever else. Helps out a ton. Or, don't. I'm not your dad. But that has been our little chat. Thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out for just a little bit. It is always a pleasure to see you guys. Hopefully this helps improve your games. Hopefully, and I'll actually, you know what? I'll put it up so that you can, just at the end of the video, you can have a look at my list once again. And I'll catch you guys in the next one, where I think we will have a crack at talking about some of our underutilized units and how you can lead them to success. As I've been chatting with a very good friend of mine, Hayden Walduck, who has been running double Riptide and trying to make them work, and apparently has found a little bit of success with them. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.